Most people I meet have a story to tell. When I tell them I work for Lulu, the first thing out of their mouth after, oh wow, the leggings, is usually books. Oh man, I'd love to write a book, but I could never do that. I'm here today to tell you that you can do that. All you have to do is start writing. So if you found yourself musing about what your name would look like in print, then this Lulu University is for you. Today, we're going over 6 tips to help you create a writing habit that sticks. Tip number 1. All right, this is pretty groundbreaking, so if I see it anywhere else on the internet, I'll know where you found it. Write! You have to write. You have to write every day. So I hope that you anticipated that being in this list at some point. But the truth is, if you hope to have a book one day that you've written, you have to write it. There's not a lot of ways around that. So I know it can seem daunting to commit to doing something every single day, but setting aside this time is really the only way for you to hone your craft and then find your voice. So something to keep in mind that can be helpful when you're thinking about this is that no one has to know what you're writing every day. These daily writing sessions are just between you and the page. You don't have to put it on social media. You don't have to call anyone and read it to them. This is just your time to develop your craft. There are a ton of ways to do this. So you can just start with a blank journal or a blank page. But if you're not really sure where to get started, there are a ton of resources and websites out there that can be a great place to begin. So one of those that we would recommend is 750words.com. And it is exactly how it sounds. It's a place for you to go and write 750 words a day. So that's about 3 pages and can be a great place for you to start. Tip number 2. Set goals for your writing. So from the offset, it may seem a little bit intimidating to create these goals for a daily writing habit, but these are just to set parameters around your work so that you can measure your progress. The important thing to remember here is that they should be achievable. So maybe going back to my reference earlier of 750words.com, you might think, oh, 750 words, that's great, that's totally doable. Or you may think 750 words is several hundred words over what I feel like I can commit to on a daily basis. And that's fine too. You have to figure out what you can do and start there. When I decided that I wanted to start my own daily writing habit, I started out with an hour. An hour a day dedicated to writing. Perfect, that'll be great. And it was. The first 2 days, I totally crushed it. Then the work week started. And I found it harder and harder to find that dedicated hour to write. So what I learned from that was that setting goals that are more achievable are going to ensure, for me personally, that I'm showing up every day to write. So I scaled back from an hour to 20 minutes, and it became so much easier for me to find that time. And I also found that oftentimes when I sat down to write for 20 minutes, I well exceeded it. So it was like a win-win. One last thing to note here, these are your goals and they can change anytime. So once you've developed your habit and got a good cadence going, be sure to periodically check in on your goals to see if they still line up with what you're trying to achieve, and if not, adjust them. Thus far, we've talked about how important it is to write every day and how to set goals for your writing. But this third tip that we have can make or break either of those. And that is devoting time to write. So going back to my earlier anecdote about how I set aside 20 minutes a day for my writing habit, maybe you're thinking that's a great entry point for you as well. And you think, hey, there's 24 hours in a day. Of course I can find 20 minutes to write. Of course I can. That's such a minuscule amount of time. There's no way I can't keep that up. But you would be surprised how quickly a day, a week, or even a month can get away from you. And then you open up your notebook and realize the last time you wrote was the last time you did laundry. And that was a while ago. So do yourself a favor and carve out a time to write every day. And something to note here is that it doesn't have to be the same time every day. I mean, look at your schedule and see what's going to work best for you and make sure to commit to your writing time. I'm going to end this section with a quote from the phenomenal blog post that inspired this video, written by our own Paul Hobday. Habits are formed by doing. When you rely on desire to prompt you to do, you are toying with failure before you even get started. So don't fail first. Stack the deck in your favor and make an appointment with yourself to write. At this point, you know you're going to be writing every day, you know that you're going to be setting goals to measure that writing, and you know when you're going to write. So what's left? Where will you write? So tip number 4 is location, location, location. So you may not find yourself with an extra wing of your house you can dedicate specifically to pinning your masterpiece, but that doesn't mean that you can't create a space specifically for you to get your writing done. So for me, whenever I decided to start writing regularly, I ordered a very inexpensive fold-away desk online, and it's been a tremendous investment. So I would highly recommend doing something like that. And even just pulling the desk out and putting it in front of the window helps me to get into the mindset of writing. So I would recommend finding a space that can give you all those writerly feels so you can have a productive writing time. Tip number 5, edit later. You built up all this momentum for your writing habit, so don't ruin it by obsessing over the grammar or the flow of what you're writing. Just get your ideas out on paper. So you probably heard the very famous quote by Hemingway that says, "Write drunk, edit sober." And even though he probably meant that very literally, the important thing to take away from this quote is that you should be in a different mindset when you're editing your work versus when you are writing it. So it's important to give yourself some distance from the work, whether that be a day, a month, or a handful of IPAs, whatever works for you. Just make sure that you give yourself some space so you can come to the work with fresh eyes and edit it properly. Last but not least, tip number 6 is establish and track metrics. So unless maybe you're a bit of a data nerd, which is totally cool, you may not be familiar with applying metrics to your daily life or daily habits, but doing so can really help you glean some valuable information about your writing practice. So the most popular metric to track when it comes to writing is probably words per day, but you could also measure time spent writing, themes or things that you consistently go back to, or anything that would be of interest to you. After you've collected a bit of data and you can keep it in a Google Doc or spreadsheet, looking back at this can actually teach you a lot about your writing habit and help you improve it over time. There you have it. Those are 6 tips to get your writing routine on track. What works for you? Where's your writing room? What beverages do you enjoy while you're there? Leave it in the comments below, hit like, hit subscribe, go write! And we'll see you next time.